Hello everyone, and welcome to the 48th Cocoa programming tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be covering how we can deal with the responder chain in regards to printing. So this is kind of just a random mix tutorial, so to speak. It's just combining a little bit of basically what we learned in lesson 47 about the responder chain, applying it to a printing example. This isn't really an in-depth tutorial on printing by any stretch of the imagination, and if you do want, though, if printing is I don't know, I haven't heard really anybody ask about printing much, so that's why I haven't really done a tutorial on it. But if people really want to learn how to print stuff, then I guess I could make a separate tutorial at some point for that. But just be warned that I have tons of other stuff to do as well. So anyway, that's that. So this tutorial, in summary, is printing with kind of a continued explanation or example of using the responder chain. So responder chain in action plus printing. I don't know what I'm going to call this tutorial yet, but lesson 48. All right, so printing is interesting in the fact that it is different depending on what it's different depending on which application type you create. So if you create a document-based application, printing works differently than it does if you create a non-document based application. So I'm going to go through both examples here, and we'll start with the document based version though, because it is easier. So lesson 48, and this will be DB for document based, and of course I will select create a document based app. Go ahead and next throw this in whatever folder you keep all these good tutorials. And here we are. So this is, first we'll head over to the main menu nib file, and we will inspect the print menu item. So the print menu item, if we look at our connections inspector, will send out a print document action to the first responder. And like I said in the previous tutorial, that means different things depending on which type of application you're using. But in general, it kind of works the same way. You start at the first responder, which I haven't really talked about how that works all that much, but I'll talk about that when I talk about focus a little bit. But anyway, besides that, first responder is basically your currently active view, usually for the most part. So usually the thing you're usually in right now. So if you were like in a text field or something, that would usually be your first responder. So for that, then it works up, the views, goes to the windows, then in a document-based application, eventually it goes to the document, and I can't really remember the order of that, but it doesn't really matter. The point, though, is that eventually, along the responder chain, some object has to implement whatever action we send out, or else it won't work, obviously. So in this case, PrintDocument is the action that's sent out from our print menu item, and it works its way up the responder chain. The only class that implements PrintDocument is NSDocument. And of course, we have an NSDocument subclass called Document sitting over here. So what that means is that, of course, we will receive a PrintDocument command or action in our class, but when you're working with document-based applications, you don't actually deal with that directly. So we actually deal with another method, which I'll show you in a second. So if I go ahead and run this by default, you will see that we can go to the file menu. We actually have the option to print, but if I go to print, it will throw an exception. And basically the reason this happens is that NSDocument actually does implement PrintDocument, so it's not crashing. If it didn't implement it, well, actually it wouldn't crash anyway because it's in the responder chain. But the point is that it goes to the NSDocument class, right? And as it hits that, NSDocument has its own implementation of PrintDocument, which is to call this other method called printOperationWithSettingsError. Now, by default, it throws this error. It just says we didn't do anything, or it throws an exception. It says we haven't overridden this. You need to override this method in order to get printing to work. So it's our job to actually override print operation with settings error. That is the printing mechanism that we work with when we're dealing with document-based applications. But the important thing to understand is that PrintDocument is the message that's sent up the responder chain. It hits the document subclass, in our case document. PrintDocument in that is already implemented by NSDocument, and that simply calls I think one other method, and then it goes to print operation with settings right here. So we are responsible for implementing this very simple method right here. So it's very nice. But the point still stands though, is that it does work its way up the responder chain. Anyway, that's my nice lengthy explanation of that. Let's get into actually first what we can print, and then I'll show you actually how to print in the document class. So we will say Command N to create a new file. We want a new Objective-C class, and I'm going to call this CoolView. It's going to be a subclass of NSView, and we will add that to our project like so. And in CoolView implementation, we have to figure out how to print. So you might be wondering, okay, so I know how to draw stuff to screen or to the screen, but how do I draw stuff to the printer or a PDF? And the cool thing is that it's the same thing. Basically, what you print to the screen, is the same thing that goes to the printer. And I think it's kind of nice. But anyway, the cool thing about this is that all your drawing code will go into DrawRect. So all we have to say is DrawRect like this and like that. So whatever we are drawing on the screen will get sent to the printer. Now, what if though we want to actually change what our view displays? And in this example, I'm going to show you how we can show a red view when we're drawing it to the screen, but then we can change it to a blue view if we want to draw it to a printer or a PDF or anywhere else. So in that case, we can figure out where we're drawing by figuring out the current context or the current graphics context. And what this means is the graphics context just represents kind of where you currently are or where you're currently executing your drawing code. So basically, we can get this by saying NSGraphics context, and from there, I just have to call the NSGraphics context class method called current context, and that will get me what I'm currently drawing to, basically. So then we can just inspect this context, and depending on where the current context is or where we're currently drawing to, then we can determine what we actually want to show as our view, right? We can draw totally different things. So we figure this out by saying context, and we'll use the method isDrawingToScreen. A very nice Objective-C method. It explains exactly what it's going to do. It's going to return a bool telling you if it's drawing to the screen or is drawing to screen. So if the context is drawing to screen, then we will draw a nice blue context. So I'll say NS color, red color, and I will set that like so. Now, if I have set my color, of course I got to fill the rect, so I just call our handy dandy NSRectFill, and I just say self bounds on that. And that will draw the entire view as whatever the currently active color is. All right, so that's for if I'm drawing to the screen. That will make my view look red. If I'm drawing to the printer, which is our else statement, right? If we're not drawing to the screen, we're drawing anywhere else, printer, PDF, etc. So in that case, I'm going to say NSColor and blue color, and we'll set that to be that. Then, of course, if I want to fill our nice rectangle up, I just say self bounds like so. And now we're set. So that's all you have to do for the nice drawing code. And yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If we're drawing to the screen, we'll be red. If we're going anywhere else, we will be blue. So of course, the next step is to actually get this view into our window. So we'll go ahead and delete this text right there. And we'll type in custom get out a custom view, like so. And from here, we will now, what am I thinking of? We will, my brain is blanking, we will change the class to be our CoolView. So we want obviously our view will now become CoolView, and we will print that out. All right, so now that we have that, what I'm going to do is simply going to connect it. So I'll open up our handy dandy inspector or assistant editor here, and we'll make a nice connection to our document. So here's CoolView. I'll make a connection like so, and we'll call it CoolView like that, and I'll import our CoolView header like so, and there we go. So there's CoolView, and that's all we wanted to do. We just want to make a properties that we can reference in our document class, because we still have to implement the printing command in document, right? Currently, we don't have any way to print this view, so I just have to make a property so that I can actually tell the printer what I want to print. So let's go back to our normal editor here, throw up this left pane, and we will go to document.m. And we'll go ahead and implement that method that I wanted to do before. So the printing in a document is simply called print operation with settings error. That's the method name. And all we have to do for this is return an NSPrint operation. And I'm sure you have no idea what an NSPrint operation is, but basically, as the name might suggest, it's anytime you're going to have some kind of printing operation. So essentially, anytime you go to print something, you will probably be creating an NSPrint operation. And it's quite simple. So all we have to do is return NSPrint operation. There's a nice class method called print operation with view. And as you might guess, we will pass in our CoolView like that. And that's all we have to do. So we just pass in CoolView to our NSPrint operation like that, and we return it, and then the document class handles all the rest. So we just set up a print operation, say here you go, this is what we want, and then the document will handle all the rest. Not that there is much more to handle, but you get the idea. We just had to create a print operation. Very simple. So with that, we're going to go ahead and run this now. And if I go ahead and hit Command P, which is print, in case you didn't know, you can see that our view here is now blue. And if I went to print this, it would actually be blue. And if I open it in a PDF, you can also see that it is blue. So that's that. Very nice. So yeah, that's that. That's printing in a document-based application. Pretty simple. There's not really much to know other than you gotta override this method in the document class itself. Basically what happens is our PrintDocument command gets sent up the responder chain, hits our document subclass, then that method will then call this method here, and that's the one we're responsible for. Of course, anytime you're printing something, you can figure out the current thing that you're printing to by using current context. Again, this can be useful if you need to slightly tweak whatever you're printing to the printer versus what you see on screen. I'm sure you can think of some kind of examples for that. Anyway, that's that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much sums up what I had to do for the document-based application. So let's go ahead now and create a new project. This will be lesson 48, and this will be NDB for non-document based. Of course, I will deselect document-based app, and we'll hit next, and we will create it. So with your previous application still open here, or previous project, we'll just drag our CoolView that we created here into our project here, and we'll add it in like that. Ta-da! Okay, so now that we have that, make this nice and full like so, and here's our non-document based version. So how is this different than the document based version? Well, the real difference here is that we don't have that nice document class to work with when we're actually printing something. So you kind of have to do whatever you want for printing, and I wouldn't really say there's one correct way to do this. It kind of depends on what you need to do. If you just have one view in your application, I can't really think of a good example of an application right now, but if you just had a single view in your application and that's what you would print, then that's probably where you would implement printing, is probably in that view. Okay. If you had a larger application that's not document based, say something like iPhoto, for example, that's probably where you would want to implement printing somewhere else other than just in the view. As you can well imagine, printing photos in iPhoto, there's many different cases where the print command would not work, right? I mean, if you're in like the places view on iPhoto, you're not going to be printing that. You want to print pictures. So iPhoto's got to do some, I don't know what it does, to be honest, because I don't write the code for iPhoto, obviously. But the point is, iPhoto probably does not handle that code in the views itself. It probably handles the code in probably its delegate or somewhere around there. I really don't know where it handles it. But the fact of the matter is, it just handles printing somewhere else. And that's just all I can really say for that. So just keep that in mind when you're working with non-document based applications. It's a little trickier, and you got to kind of figure out what your application is going to look like in the end. So with that in mind, it's not a big deal. You can always change it later on, but let's just inspect what we have here. So if I go to File, Print, and I look at my Connections Inspector, we can see that the action that is sent is called print. This is different from the previous one, which was PrintDocument, but it's not that much different, I guess. Probably the reason this one's called PrintDocument, or this one's called print though, is that NS Window itself actually responds to print. So if you want to see this in action, this is already implemented for us. If we go to print without changing our application at all, we can see that the print command works, and that we actually would print out the window. So if I enlarge this a little bit here, we can see that that's what we get out, or is we'd actually get the window. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know if these black things actually stay on here or what that is exactly, but I've never printed out a window, I'm not gonna lie. If you have, you're cool, I guess, but that's that. So I don't really have much to say other than that's what the default behavior is for printing in a non-document based application. So how does this work in terms of the responder chain? Well, the print action gets sent up the responder chain when it hits our window, which might be right away because our window might be the first responder, right? It goes first responder, and then the views, and then the window, and then the delegate, and blah, 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 a bunch of other things. But the point is that the print command gets sent up the responder chain. The first thing to implement print is going to be our window. So that's that. So that's important to know, I guess. Yeah, so the window has its own implementation of print, and it prints itself. So that's all I really had to say. I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, that's that. So how can we change this up though, so that CoolView will be the thing that's getting printed, right? Because unlike the last one, we don't really have a spot where I can just say, yeah, I don't have a document section where I can just say, oh, here's my print operation. No, I don't have that in this example. Our window is going to be the thing that prints first. So that's kind of a little bit of a roadblock, I guess, if you're working with this. But this example would be that, like I was talking about the two examples before with iPhoto, where it's very complicated and just a very simple version. This would be the very simple version where we just have one view. So what can we do with this? Well, we already have the drawing code in here. But let's say, is this not doing the nice autofill for me? God, I hate when this happens. Okay, yeah, it's being mean to me today. Anyway, there is a print method, and this should auto-complete for you, by the way, but it's just not for me because it hates me, I guess. Anyway, ID sender, like so. That's the method that gets passed up. And all we have to do is basically intercept this and say that we want to print ourselves. So how do we do this? Well, very similar to what we did before. We just create an NS print. Ugh, God, this isn't autofilling anything. All right, let me just kill all this and try again because I hate when this happens. I don't know if anybody knows why this happens in Xcode, or if I'm the only one that ever gets this. Let me know. I'll try to drag these in again. I think the reason is actually I didn't make it to the target. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, let's try this again. So I have my CoolView. All right, there we go. That looks a little better. Okay, so like I was saying, I want to implement print. That is the thing I was looking for earlier with print. And there we go. So what I want to do when I get this message, right, because the responder chain is going to work the way up the responder chain, the view should be hit first, assuming that it is coming before the window. But anyway, I'll talk about that in a bit. But anyway, we're going to be printing, and this works the same way that we did when we were working with the document-based version. We got to create an NSPrint operation. Print operation with view. We are the view, right? We're in the CoolView class, so we just pass ourselves in. And from there, we just have to call run operation, right? Because in the document-based version, we return an NSPrint operation, and then the document figures out what to do with that. But in this case, we're not doing anything. We're not returning the print operation. We are the print operation, so we are running it here. The last thing that we have to do to get the CoolView ever to print is say that we can accept first responder status. So we implement accepts first responder and return yes. And what this means is that by default, NSView will return no to accept first responder. So there's no chance that we will ever get the print call actually to this view. Accepts first responder means that we can become the first responder, and we will be able to get the print message sent to us. So of course that's what we want. Now let's see how this works out here. So I want my window up, and I'm going to throw in custom. I want to throw in my CoolView now to this window, so we'll throw this in. And Xcode has not been nice to me with this, so we'll see how this works. But anyway, we'll throw in our custom view, change this to be CoolView like so, and that's that. So I think we got everything that we need. All the printing's there, all the good stuff. This is CoolView, and we should be able to run this and see it in action. And with my luck, we won't see what I want. But anyway, go ahead and try this out. We'll try the print, and yeah, that's what usually happens. So anyway, I don't know, for whatever reason, this tutorial, I've been battling for trying to get this print command to work properly, but it hasn't really been too nice to me for whatever reason. I don't know if this is an Xcode thing, or if it's specifically I can't figure out the responder chain. But anyway, for whatever reason, I'm tending to get this where the window will actually pop up instead, which is not what I want. I want the view, right, to get this first. I don't know. It seems to be that if I fiddle around with the nib file, that all of a sudden it works again. And let's just keep trying it until it does. There you go. That's exactly what I mean. So I didn't do anything differently, as you noticed, but I just changed the custom class again. I deleted it and then wrote it back in as CoolView, and all of a sudden everything works. So I don't know if this is an Xcode thing, and I feel bad for not exactly being able to explain why this doesn't work properly. But anyway, as you can see now, we get the actual view as what was printed. So in terms of the responder chain, what was happening here, and oops, I don't know what I just did there. Nope, I don't want to do that. In terms of responder chain, what was happening is that the print command, right, gets sent up the responder chain. Presumably, the first responder is our view. I believe that's how it works. I'm not 100% sure on that, but our view should be the first responder in this case, and the window would come after that. And so since our view is first, it implements print, right? Our CoolView implements print, and so it executes there, and it never gets to the window. So that's how the first responder chain, or that's how the responder chain works. For whatever reason, I can't actually answer, sadly, if this is a Xcode issue that I was having with that, or if this is specific to how I'm doing this. But nonetheless, it seems to work every time I try it after. So anyway, you can play around with this. It should work, but I'm pretty sure my explanation isn't too flawed. But nonetheless, if you want to make sure that this will work a good guaranteed way, that I would suggest you try. And if you want to bypass the window, maybe you want to get to the app delegate for your printing for whatever reason, you might have this a reason to do this. I'll show you a more proper way so that you won't have the issue running into the window. So what we can do is we'll go to our connections inspector, we'll kill the print command like that. So now our print menu item doesn't actually do anything. What we'll do is we'll go into the first responder object here, which isn't really an object at all, but it's kind of a fake object. And what I'm going to do is change an action that we're going to use on the print command, and it's going to be print this. For whatever reason, we'll just call it print this. And print this is going to be the new action that I want to link into my print. So I'll control drag from print to the first responder, and we'll find our print this, which is right here. And so we will now change the method that's in CoolView and change it to print this. And now, knowing how the first responder, the responder chain works, this call, oops, didn't mean to do that, but our print, right? The print this action will be sent up the responder chain, and so the only thing that implements this is CoolView, and it should have it accepts first responder status, so it has to be able to receive this as long as it's visible. So we'll go ahead and run this, and we'll call print, and as you can see, we properly get the print view that we wanted. So sorry about the explanation for the print command with the window. I want to say it's an Xcode issue, but I'm not sure. I could be a little faulty on my explanation of who is becoming the first responder. Maybe the reason that the window gets printed is because, for whatever reason, it's the first responder in this case, and then it goes to the views. But I'm pretty sure that's not how it's supposed to work. Nonetheless, I just showed you an alternative way that you probably want to use anyway, is to change the actual action that's sent from the print command. This gives you a lot more flexibility as far as who actually receives this message. So if you wanted instead for the app delegate, for example, to implement print this, right, then you give that app delegate the ability to respond. If you're using print, the problem with this is that NSWindow is probably going to block that command. It's probably going to hit NSWindow at some point, and then NSWindow is going to do its print command. If you want to bypass NSWindow, or our window here, then you would probably want to change your action to something else, and just know that however you're implementing this, that some object in the responder chain will be able to respond to your print. So anyway, that's my sort of continued explanation of the responder chain, although didn't seem too good in this tutorial. But nonetheless, if you have any questions on this, feel free to ask them in the comments below. And this will be probably the last one on specifically working with the responder chain like we have, but I will talk about a few more things dealing with working with the next responder. So sort of getting to, anyway, I'm not going to try to explain in this tutorial. That's for another tutorial altogether. But hopefully you got enough out of this tutorial to understand at least how the responder chain kind of works in an example. Printing in a very general form. Again, if you want more tutorials on printing, feel free to leave that suggestion in the comments below, and if I get enough of those, then I'll try to do a tutorial on that. But other than that, I apologize for the lack of tutorials. I've been kind of busy with iOS stuff, actually, surprisingly. But nonetheless, I will see you guys in hopefully a tutorial really soon. And yeah, so leave your suggestions, subscribe, and I will see you then.